Hello students. In this video, we'll discuss passage 2 of the reading section of the December 2020 ACT, Form D03. So let's begin. Passage 2, Social Science. This passage is from the article The Awful Reign of the Red Delicious by Sarah Yeager. In the 1870s, Jesse Hyatt, an Iowa farmer, discovered a mutant seedling in his orchard of yellow bellflower apple trees. He chopped it down, but the next season it sprang back through the dirt. He chopped it down again. It sprang back again. If thee must grow, he told the intrepid sprout, thee may. A decade later, Hyatt's tree bore its first fruit. The apples were elongated globes with red and gold striped skin, crisp flesh, and a five-pointed calyx. In 1893, when Stark Brothers Nursery of Louisiana, Missouri, held a contest to find a replacement for the Ben Davis, then the most widely planted apple in the country, strapping and good-looking but bland, Hyatt submitted his new variety, which he called the Hawkeye. My, that's delicious, Clarence Stark, the company's president, reportedly said after his first bite. But not for the first time in apple lore, one sweet taste precipitated a fall. Stark Brothers, this obviously refers to the Genesis story, right? When Adam bit the apple. So, one second, I'm just trying to look for my pen. That's fine. Okay. Um, Stark Brothers soon secured the right to the Hawkeye, changed its name to the Stark Delicious only after the branding of the Golden Delicious. In 1914, did it become the Red Delicious, and began an ambitious marketing campaign. Over the next 2 decades, the nursery spent $750,000 to promote the new apple, dispatching traveling salesmen to farms across the country and exhibiting the delicious at the 1904 World's Fair. After the completion of the Great Northern Railway, Clarence Stark sent trainloads of seedlings to newly established orchards in the Columbia River Valley, their leaves trembling as the engines rumbled west. With its hardy root stalks and juicy, curvaceous fruit, the Red Delicious quickly became a favorite of growers and consumers from coast to coast. And as its commercial success grew, so did its distance from Hyatt's Hawkeye. Okay, so far we have kind of learned about the origin of the fruit, which came to be known as the Red Delicious. This it was a fruit that was basically discovered when I can't seem to find my pen. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it was a fruit that was discovered when this farmer called Jesse Hyatt found that there was this odd-looking uh, uh, mutant seedling. Yeah, there was an odd-looking seedling that was flowering among his apple trees, and it seemed to keep coming back even after he chopped it down. And then when he decided not to chop it down, in a decade, it started bearing fruit, which turned out to be delicious, right? So, and then he kind of sold the rights to the fruit to the Stark brothers, and they decided to market it far and wide. Okay, um, so with its hardy rootstocks and juicy curvaceous fruit, the Red Delicious quickly became a favorite of growers and consumers from coast to coast, and as its commercial success grew, so did its distance from Hyatt's Hawkeye. In 1923, a New Jersey orchardist wrote to the Starks to report that one limb of a tree he had purchased from the nursery was producing crimson apples, while those on the other limbs remained green. A chance genetic mutation that made the apples redden earlier had also given them a deeper, more uniform color, and customers were lining up for a taste. Paul Stark, one of Clarence's sons, traveled up from Missouri and laid down $6,000 for the limb. News of the deal spread, and soon the Gettysburg Times reported that more than 500 horticulturists from 30 states had gathered. One second. Had gathered at the orchard to discuss the freak bud that produced the marvel apple of the age. Their meeting marked the beginning of an era of fruit improvement as growers began to seek out and cultivate similar mutations. Okay, so after its growth, there was this mutation that was discovered in 1923 by a New Jersey orchidist, and it turned out that the it gave the apples a more uniform color, right? It was a genetic mutation that made the apples redden earlier and gave them a uniform color. And this was again something that was the rights to this were purchased by the Stark brothers. This time it was Clarence's son who purchased it. Okay, by the 1940s, the Red Delicious had become the country's most popular apple with the broad shoulders and lipstick shine of a golden age Hollywood star. The cosmetic changes were a boon for industrial agriculturists. Apples that turned rosy before they were fully ripe could be picked earlier and stored longer, and skins with more red pigment tended to be thicker, which extended shelf life and hid bruises. But as genes for beauty were favored over those for taste, the skins grew tough and bitter around mushy, sugar soaked flesh. Still, by the 1980s, the Red Delicious made up 75% of the crop produced in Washington. By the time selective breeding had taken its toll, according to apple expert Tom Burford, a few big nurseries controlled the market. Planting decisions were made from the remove of boardrooms, and consumers didn't have many varieties to choose from. The Red Delicious became the largest compost maker in the country, he said, as shoppers routinely bought the apples and threw them away. Okay, so all of this focus on the looks of the apple affected its taste, and also because it was kind of monopolized by a few nurseries, there was only this and a few other varieties to choose from. And so there was this kind of industrial scale farming did not benefit consumers, and in fact a lot of the fruit was thrown and it contributed to compost because it didn't taste good. Then in the 1990s, new varieties that American growers had originally developed for overseas markets began to edge into the domestic market. Shoppers had been eating with their eyes and not their mouths, Burford said, and now their taste buds had been awakened. A sudden shift in consumer preferences, paired with growing competition from orchards in China, took the industry by surprise. Between 1997 and 2000, US apple growers lost nearly $800 million in surplus crop. They had made the apples redder and redder and prettier, and they just about bred themselves out of existence. Marketing director for one Northwestern fruit company told the New York Times. Since then, Red Delicious production has declined by 40%, while the apple is still by far the most common in the US. Growers produced 54 million bushels of Red Delicious in 2011, compared to just 33 million bushels of its closest competitor, the Gala. The industry is adjusting to a changing market. Okay, so we kind of look at the changing market for Red Delicious through the passage, starting from its discovery and going on to its height. It's by the 1980s it was at its peak, and then kind of the decline caused by a number of factors. Its poor taste, competition from China, right? All of that contributed to it getting less popular, even though at the right time of writing in 2011 it was still the highest selling apple, right? Okay, so let's start with the questions. The main purpose of the passage is to explore the apple varieties that were the ancestors of the Red Delicious, relate the history of the Red Delicious, consider contemporary opinions, explain how. So this is obviously B. We're looking at the history of Red Delicious, how it started and all of that, right? Which of the following statements best represents the passage's central claim? Though genetic changes helped the Red Delicious achieve popularity, they eventually contributed to its decreasing popularity. Due to the ease of fostering genetic changes, it became the apple of choice for growers. Despite intense competition, the superior taste of the Red Delicious led to its domination. Because the Red Delicious increased the size, the development of new apple. So it's clearly F, right? Because we know that there were genetic changes that helped it become famous because it was pretty and red and all of that. It eventually, those changes also meant that it lacked taste, and that eventually contributed to its decline. So that's F. Which of the following events referred to in the passage occurs first chronologically? Stark Brothers Nursery paid $6,000 for one limb in a New Jersey orchard. Stark Brothers Nursery held a contest. The Red Delicious accounted for 75%. The Red Delicious was featured at the World's Fair. So I think the contest was the first, right? Because that's where Hyatt brought this thing, you know, his apple variety. And that's where they figured that, okay, this was great, this was delicious. And the World's Fair happened, wait, was it the, wait, but not for the first, yeah, no, that was the branding decision, right? So it was, the contest was in 1893. Yeah, so it is the contest. That's B. Yeah. Based on the passage, the phrase selective breeding had taken its toll. More specifically refers to the financial cost of the genetic development. Burford's Open Red Apple releases was hurting overall sales. Market share lost to new apple varieties. The deterioration of the taste and texture, right? So it clearly is J, because the selective breeding may have improved its look, but its taste had gone for a toss. So it's J. Which of the following statements best summarizes the sixth paragraph, lines 70 to 82? Then in the 1990s, new varieties that American growers, so this kind of represents the reasons that the Red Delicious declined. In the 1990s, consumer preferences continued to increase. The consumer preferences for fruit other than apples caused US and so new apple varieties, US apple growers, yeah, and the consumer preferences for US apple growers. Redder, 1 second. Shoppers, and now the taste buds have been awakened. Took the industry by surprise. They made the apples. Yeah, so it is financial. Yeah, so it is C. So because of consumer preference for new varieties and increased competition from China, it led to losses for US apple growers. In the first paragraph, the seedling in Hyatt Orchard is portrayed as persistent, right? Because he kept cutting it, but it kept coming back. So it is persistent. Scruffy, hostile, ordinary. No, none of those make sense in this context. Yeah. As used in line 18, the word secured most nearly means secured. Stark Brothers soon secured the rights. So they soon bought the rights, I would say, right? Acquired the rights. So it will be B. According to the passage, which of the following methods did the Stark Brothers nursery use to bring the Stark Delicious to the attention of apple growers? It was traveling salesman, right? Yeah, it says here that dispatching traveling salesmen to farms across the country. Yeah, so yeah, that was J. The passage claims which of the following features helps extend the shelf life of apples. Yeah, that comes here somewhere. Yeah, the skins with more red pigments tended to be thicker, which extended shelf life. So thicker skin, thick skin, A. And 20. In the context of the passage, the information between the dashes in lines 85 to 87 mainly serves to, since then, while the apple is still by far growers, okay, so that's just kind of giving evidence for why the Red Delicious continues to be popular, or that it continues to be popular. Illustrate the continued domination of the market here. So that's just J. That's the last question, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and grade this. We have 11 to 20. So this is here. This one, BFBJC, BFBJC, FBJAJ, FBJAJ. Okay, great. So that was passage 2 of the reading section of the December 2020 ACT. I'll be making videos on passages 3 and 4 soon. Passage 1 has already been uploaded, so do check it out. That's it. If you found it useful, please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.